Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into your very own Husky Dash again, where you can get all of the commentary you didn't know you needed for the week. I'm Joseph Claypoole at 9_3/4, joined by at Nathan Mathisen again, and today we're going to be discussing a hypothetical analysis of our original preseason game against Michigan, the tight end rotation battle, and brand new, a special segment that you'll get to learn about toward the end of our show. So that's a first-time segment we're doing. It's going to last 3 weeks, and you'll learn more about it later. But first up is this brand new intro thing we have called Dog Snacks. We're just going to give you a quick breakdown at the beginning of each show on college football news that didn't make it into a segment for our week at that time. First up, we have an announcement from Donald Trump saying that he's going to be working with the Big Ten commissioner to get the Big Ten, quote, playing again and immediately. In other news, we have more college players that have opted out of the season in order to pursue draft training and whatnot. We have Jamar Chase, a wide receiver out of LSU, Kenneth Gainwell, a running back at Memphis, Jamie Newman, quarterback for Georgia, and the saddest of the bunch, one of our own, Joe Tryon, our former now, since he's not going to be playing, leading pass rusher for the past year. Heading into our actual segments, though, Nathan, I think you have something to share with me about a game we may have had.
Yeah, so as everyone knows who's watching this, we were supposed to be playing Michigan, which would have been this Saturday. Everyone was excited about it. Hopefully it would have been a great game. And surprisingly, I actually learned that the Huskies have first played Michigan over 60 years ago. So there's actually a bit of history. I mean, they've met 12 times. Michigan does have the slight edge with a 7-5 record against UW. But we've also met 4 times in the Rose Bowl, with that record even at 2-2. And then the most recent time that we played Michigan was in a home and away series, just like it would have been this year. And that was back in 2001 and 2002. So then back to the segment, though, we're going to be talking about each of us have 3, or what would have been our 3 key points for the Huskies in order to win that. Do you want to take it away with your first key point, Joseph?
Yeah, my first point is it's based around the fact that last year we had an absolutely underrated defense. They had a ball and chain attached to their ankles. But even though that elite defense is now a year older, a year smarter, a year seasoned, even more, they still needed to show up against this Michigan team. Like, Michigan's from another conference. These aren't going to be the lower of our conference, like pushovers. These aren't going to be those normal like tune-up games that you get. This is like a serious opponent. And for us to have won, 2 things needed to not 2 things. The biggest thing that needed to happen was that our elite defense needed to be elite.
Yeah, I can't agree more with you. I focus more for my first point on the defense. I focus mainly with the D-line. I felt they truly needed to show up. As Michigan coming into this game has 4 new offensive linemen they had this year, because they had 4 leave. A couple went to the NFL and a couple just graduated. With UW's veteran D-line of Levi Onwuzurike and then Joe Tryon would have been playing this game had there been the game probably. Yeah. I mean, I felt they needed to dominate the line of scrimmage going up against a young offensive line. And Michigan's also got a young quarterback, so they might have leaned on the run game, which then would have put more pressure on the Husky run defense. So I think it really was needed for the Husky D-line to step up and make a large impact in this game if it had happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, just piggybacking off of you, like, not only does that defensive line need to have stood out and like been great with Levi O and who's
Joe Tryon.
Like, those 2 needed to have been playing at the top of their game, and our secondary couldn't have slacked off. Granted, our secondary has 2 people that ranked in the top 50 of the PFF, and they have an insane roster depth at cornerback, safeties, and inside linebackers, where I don't think we would have had too much problem if we were focused the whole game.
Yeah, I think the secondary, I was more focusing on the D-line due to secondary going up against that young quarterback. I'm just hoping that if they had been on the game plan like Elijah Mold and Trent McDuffie, these guys should have shown up the game. So I focused more on D-line, but secondary needed to be on point in order for this game. It's kind of awkward talking about a game
that didn't happen.
And it's not going to happen this year.
Just really quickly, for anyone who might doubt us on our like elite defense actually being an elite defense, coming into the season, we were ranked 10th by 24/7 Sports, 35th by NCAA stat rankings out of every CFB team. 15th by OddShark, and for the JCAD-R, which is the Joseph Claypool annual defensive rankings, I ranked them top 5. So, I mean, that's why I said they had to show up to be elite, because out of most of that, it's coming out of most other teams and analysts not really sure that we're an elite team, us knowing we are and just needing to have showed up. You mentioned linemen earlier, and that's my second point, is that we, as a Husky offense, needed to have developed a run game, because without that and their interior D-line under Jim Harbaugh, that would have been scary. If we had 0 run game, we would have had no pressure there, and then our passing game would have been non-existent.
Yeah, I agree with you. I put more focus on Richard Newton because, as you said, the O-line, I'm agreeing with you there. They had to show up and block those monsters Michigan always has on the interior. But with Richard Newton, the Huskies sophomore running back, I believe, this would have been his first year really controlling the whole running game, with Savon Ahmed graduating and heading off to the NFL. So Richard Newton needed to step up. I mean, he's a big guy, 6 foot, 210 pounds. He runs like a souped up wrecking ball or something. He runs through players. He last year had just under 500 yards he averaged 4.2 yards a carry, and he had 10 touchdowns. I mean, in the goal line, in the red zone, you give him the ball, he's getting into the end zone. So I felt he needed to show up, especially taking a bit of the pressure off of the young quarterback. The Huskies would have been starting with their new quarterback.
Yeah, and with that, another thing to point out on we have our own defensive lineman who's out there. They have a star-owned lineman on the Michigan team right now his name's Chris Hinton. That guy's an absolute beast. Now the kind of O lineman series and era that's been under Jim Harbaugh, they were fire the first 3 years, and these past 2 years they've been falling off. And this is a similar thing with the past reason I had, where our elite defense is elite, but they need to show up. It's the same thing of now their O line being an elite offensive line, possibly one of the best in college football at the moment. And this game would have figured that out for us, whether or not our O line was one of the best in our conference, and whether their D line and their star players on defense could have shown up to stop us.
Yeah, it would have been a good test for the Husky O line, especially with I think they have 2 or 3 new O-linemen actually following the departures of guys like Trey Adams, but they still had some of their depth from last year, and it would have been great to see them go up against a true test, not like one of these Eastern Washington teams that they usually play to start the year. It would have been fun to watch 2 historic teams go up against each other.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your third reason for that?
Yeah, so my third point would have been, it's just overall Husky offense settling in. I mean, everything's new basically. You got a new head coach in Jimmy Lake. You got a new offensive coordinator in John Donovan. You got the new quarterback, some new offensive linemen. Just them needing to settle in, get in a game plan, hopefully rely on the run, which then the run would open up the pass for the Huskies later on with play actions. And just overall being comfortable in your offense. You're going up against a top-ranked team. I believe ESPN had Michigan's D at 11 or somewhere around there. So it wouldn't have been easy. I mean, there would have been nerves, and if the Huskies offense were able to settle in, I think they had a good chance at winning this game.
Yeah, I'm all down with that settling in kind of aspect, because that really ties into my third point. And before you jump into our next segment, I just wanted to point out that with logic, just plain logic, Huskies should have won that game. If we go based off of bowl games, end of season kind of deals and cross-conference games from last year, in the 2019 season, by that math, we would have won this opener. And I get there by this. Wisconsin destroyed Michigan. I mean, ripped them a new one. They ripped them apart. And if we go logic following, if the Ducks barely beat Wisconsin and we barely lost to the Ducks, that difference between Wisconsin and Michigan is greater than our difference with the Ducks, which means I know through logic, proven logic, stats 220, intro to logic here at UW, we would have beat Michigan in this opener.
Well, I would pick UW to beat Michigan. I don't know if the logic follows always in football, but I would have still picked UW just because of.
We won our bowl game. They didn't win
Yeah.
theirs. That's
Yeah,
another piece. Hey, we win. That's what I'm saying. UW beats Michigan.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we better get into our next segment, which is, of course, the tight end position.
Yes.
I mean, the Huskies tight ends they've been putting out a few into the NFL with like Will Disley, Joshua Perkins, Darrell Daniels, and then most recently, Hunter Bryant just left the Huskies as a junior, I believe he went to the NFL. But the Huskies tight end position isn't decimated, as they actually have 9 tight ends on the roster. Yeah, so they've got a very deep tight end group, and they've got lots of guys to figure out who's the best. And I think we both agree who the number 1 tight end will be.
Without a doubt.
But this will be more trying to figure out who the second and third and maybe even fourth guy might be in the rotation, with them likely having to run a rotation because they've got Cade Otton. I'll just say his name. He's gonna be the starter. He's the number 1. I mean, he had a great year last season behind Hunter Bryant. He had around 350 yards. He had only a couple touchdowns. Like to get that number up. But who would you pick as someone who could make an impact, whether it be receiving, blocking, besides Cade Otton?
To me, for that number 2 rotation, and they're going to switch out. And what it comes down to is whether or not the size Devin Culp has put on is just appearance. If that's just appearance, then I think Jacob Kaiser takes the position hands down. I think with Devin Culp's catching ability and his size increase over this past year, I mean, it's insane. If you've seen a before and after picture from when he came in this year. I saw
that picture. It is a huge difference.
Yeah, like that man's going to be insane if that size is like actual physical output and ability and not just like a vanity thing. I think Culp takes second rotation and gets the majority of snaps after Otton if his size is also ability.
Yeah, I mean, I like Devin Culp. I would give the majority of the snaps after to kind of 3 guys. Actually, I'm splitting up. I'm giving each guy a little bit of snaps behind Cade Otton, starting with kind of a main blocker in Jacob Kaiser. You mentioned him. I would really just rely on Kaiser as a blocking tight end.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a big body, 260 pounds. He's a senior. He's been on the team for a while. He's actually played in 33 games.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 3 catches. So he's not a receiving tight end, but he's a great blocker. The coaches have said how much they love him. They've actually said before that he's a guy behind Cade Otton they'd feel comfortable starting. But then as for more the receiving aspect at the position, I'd be looking for one of those 2 4-star freshmen coming in, Mark Redmond or
over
Jack
Devin Culp.
Yeah, I like Devin Culp, but he bulked up, which I'm afraid that might lower his speed. I mean, so I'd look at Mark Redmond, Jack Yari. I keep thinking he's Jack Yari for the second spot. And especially at the start of the year, those two, they're very similar. Jack Yari, there it is again, and Mark Redmond, they're both 6'6", 250 pounds. They're like a prototypical tight end. They're not like Devin Culp. Devin Culp's a converted wide receiver who is now a tight end. So he's might not be the best blocker. He's more a hands guy only. And then they're both not converted O-linemen, like kind of Kaiser's more of a blocker, not receiver. Mark Redmond and Jack Yari are guys who can block. They're guys who can receive. And that's why I feel that they'll be guys you have to put on the field. Their talent commands it. They're all around. They're all around talents.
I don't know. I really think Devin Culp, I mean, this is a big if. Like this is all dependent on what the coaches have seen in spring training and this preseason and during practices when they start coming up. Is if he's kept his speed and his hands ability along with his size increase, and he's like done block training and he's upgraded his ability to block different rushers, whether they come from the edge, the inside. If he's done that, I think he has a great shot, if not an almost sure chance of taking that number 2 spot in the rotation. With Jacob Kaiser taking the 3, then if Devin Culp doesn't. Mm-hmm. The only problem I see there is if Jacob Kaiser does end up taking second, I think Devin Culp drops. I think Devin Culp drops to 4 or 5. And then I think Jack Westover outshines the freshman and comes up to 3 right behind Kaiser for those spots, just because Jack Westover's been here a little longer. He's a little bigger, he's a little taller, he's a little faster, he's a little more proven. I mean, I can just keep going on about the little more things he's done than these freshmen that are coming in. And I think that the coaches with precedent respect and appreciate that like veteranism that kind of comes around for being in the program.
We've seen that before.
Yeah, we have seen that before. Yeah. We're going to see it again. Something really interesting I want to bring up about a prediction I have for Jack Yari is that he's essentially like almost pound for pound, inch for inch. He's the exact same height and exact same build and exact same weight as Cade Otton. Mm-hmm. He's like Cade Otton's younger brother from a different family, you know?
Yeah.
I think that he immediately comes under Otton's tutelage. Just like the second he gets there and arrives for practices and starts practicing with the man, he starts learning from him. And then he gains size, he gains speed, he gains skill, and he becomes the best out of everybody else who's in that pack. So from outside of Cade Otton, Kaiser, and Colt, Yari outshines everybody else, including Westover, and solidifies himself as like the next best thing that's coming up as he gets older.
Yeah, continue. You continue.
And then, sorry, this is a long. I've thought about this, and then by the end of next season, at the very earliest, most likely the start of his junior season, Yari becomes the best tight end in the Pac-12, hands down. And then senior year.
Senior year. Moving on. This is 4 years.
Year, he's like at a minimum top 3 tight ends in the FBS, or he's the absolute best. He has the ability to get there. I'm not saying he will be at this moment. Best tight end in Pac-12 with hands down. Like that's without a doubt in 3 years. But yeah, he definitely has the ability to reach like God tier potential as a tight end.
Yeah, I like Jack Yari. I feel he's very similar to Cade Otton. And that's one of the reasons that I feel that Mark Redmond by the end of this year will be getting more snaps and more passes than Jack Yari, because Jack Yari is similar to Cade Otton. They already have someone like that right now. Mark Redmond is more, he's not Hunter Bryant athleticism, but he's more on that tier. He's a little more athletic than Jack Yari currently. He's got a bit more speed. So he's a tight end that they can play. And unlike like Cade Otton and Jack Yari, they're tight ends that you run underneath routes, drag routes. They're 3rd and 5. Get it to them. They've got great hands. They'll make the first down. Mark Redmond's a guy you can throw on a vertical route. He can go up there and make a play. He can man-to-man versus an outside linebacker, middle linebacker, not against a safety or corner. He can beat him. So that's why I feel Redmond, for his freshman year, will probably end up getting more snaps than Jack Yari. But yeah, I could easily agree with you following Cade Otton, who will likely leave after this season for the NFL. Jack Yari could easily replace that and do even bigger and better things.
He's absolutely going to fill those shoes when Cade Otton leaves, and I cannot wait, even though I'm graduating this year. I cannot, well, fingers crossed, I don't want to ruin the academic gods or like spite their eye or whatever you want to call it. That made no sense. But yes, I do think Jack Yari in a year is going to be a phenomenal tight end for the university, and I would not be surprised if and when a season for the Pac-12 rolls around, he's getting snaps and possibly a start towards the end of the season. He's just a phenomenal player in high school. His stat portfolio and his film review, like sessions that I've done on his high school games are, I mean, I couldn't ask for more of a tight end coming out of high school. Like he's a 4-star, he's in a 5, but I would have, if I had my own college team, would have loved to grab Jack Yari.
Yeah, he's got great high school accolades and 4-star. But then another thing that I'm actually putting Redmond above for just this season maybe is because if you all recall from episode 1 of Husky Dash, we debated the quarterback battle, and I picked Ethan Garbers. So I feel he'll be the starter. And if you look at it, Ethan Garbers and Mark Redmond are high school teammates. They have that great chemistry. They have on-field repertoire. They've played together. So Garbers, if he's the starter, he might look to lean towards Redmond, someone he knows his speed, he knows where to throw the ball. And just Garbers actually was one of the reasons Redmond came here. I mean, Garbers managed to sway Redmond away from the likes of Alabama, Ohio State, LSU. So they've obviously got a good friendship, and that's just another reason I like Redmond over Yari for the first season. well, he's behind K. Dotton.
We'll get to see come spring ball and all the training they're doing. I do think now, though, that you bring up that point, that would be a fantastic duo to see grow up into their junior, senior seasons. That's going to be really interesting to watch. Next up now, though, we have the brand new segment I've been hinting at. In either next week or the week after, we're going to be talking about a possible reward for viewers following this kind of pick of the litter, as we're calling it, where we rank the top three, in our opinion, the top three Huskies of all time, based only on their college careers. So I'm very sorry. I don't think he definitely didn't make my record for college performances for pick of the litter, even at third today. But Warren Moon didn't make my list at all.
Yeah, Warren Moon was a tough choice. I really contemplating putting him at 3, but for certain reasons, I just decided to leave him off my list.
I just couldn't do it. There were other players who had much better college careers than Warren Moon did at UW. And for the Husky college careers, I want to hear your pick first. Who did you have as your third best, bottom of the podium?
So bottom of the podium, not disregarding his accomplishments. I mean, this was very tough because there's been so many Husky legends.
Yeah.
But I decided to go at number 3 with Sonny Sixkiller. And not just because his name is perfect. I mean, Sonny Sixkiller.
Yeah, that's all right.
He was in the 1970s. He really changed Husky football. And when he came to Husky football, the previous 2 seasons, the records were 3, 5, and 2. 2 ties in one season. When does that happen? And then the year before, 1 and 9. And then in his first season as a starter, he actually won the job because of injuries. The starter was injured in practice. And then in the first quarter of their spring game, the guy above him got injured. So he came into the spring football game. Now, this is 1970. And he threw the ball 50 times in 1970. And he threw for just under 300 yards in that game and won 50-7 against the other team they were playing.
Yeah.
And then he won the starting job. And week 1, he comes out and throws for 287 yards, beats a Michigan State team that was favored and had beat him just the previous year by double digits. So he comes out and passes. He's a passer. Now, before I get too in-depth in it, you want to say your starter or your third pick?
Yeah, I went with Reggie Williams. Completely different time period. Not even the same position. I had no idea what your pick was going into this. He coming in was first team All Pac-10 in 2002 and 2003. He was a consensus first team All-American in 2002. He's first all-time in receptions and receiving yards for UW, and he's fourth all-time for receiving touchdowns for UW. Reggie Williams also went on to have like an insane, or not insane, I'd say. He went above average for his NFL career, which was really good. Do you want to tell us really quick? I know we're not judging based off of their NFL careers. Would you mind just bringing up possibly what Sixkiller's post-college football kind of career is looking like?
Frankly, in NFL, except he started he was in The Longest Yard, the movie. But we're looking at Husky college football.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, so, it's just college. One guy has it, one guy had nothing after.
Well, if we were bringing in NFL and following the career, then I probably wouldn't have picked Sonny Sixkiller. But looking at his stats in college, he left UW football with 15 of the passing records. He basically wrote the record books, and actually his yards per completion record still stands to this day in UW.
Okay, what about his other records?
Well, his other records lasted 20, some of them 20 years. Like his career passing record lasted 23 years at 5,400 yards in his career.
I'd like to also point out that was the year of the quarterback for many. Like I think it was Stanford's quarterback, like set the all-time like CFB or whatever.
Jim Plunkett.
Yeah, set the record for all college football for, I think it was passing yards or something, outshining Sixkiller at UW.
Well, Sixkiller, when he played Jim Plunkett, actually had a better game. He actually outsigned the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, what? Okay, that was one game. I'd like to point out, though, that like he's dropped to 10th all-time for completions, 8th all-time for yards, and 5th all-time for thrown touchdowns.
Well, you also have to look at it the era. Look at it now.
Jacob, start of the passing quarterback era.
Yeah, the start. But now you've got Jacob Eason and Jake Browning over here just These
So
guys slinging it.
Why weren't they your third best then? If they were better than six killer?
Well, they were better for like the era. Like the eras made them throw more. Like they weren't
Well, if they
better
played against each
relative.
other, Browning and Eason would have single-handedly just thrown down on six killer and
Well,
won.
I don't know about that. You can't make that statement. That's kind of.
Oh my gosh! Yes, absolutely. They would have gotten destroyed.
On what basis? Just because
They're now more accurate, better passing quarterbacks. Like cornerbacks and safeties have changed recently as well, and I think six killer is outshined by other quarterbacks who could have been ranked third on your podium with that logic.
Well, I could have picked other quarterbacks, but I liked six killer, and it's not just the stats. He didn't always have the best stats, but what he did for Husky football, kind of bringing in that passing era. Like his coach Jim Owens, he was a runner. I mean, looking at their stats for 1957 to 1970, they only had two seasons where they averaged over 100 passing yards. I mean, or 100 passing yards a game. I mean, Sonny would do that every game. He threw for 387 yards one game, and then 320 the next game. He was the first quarterback in UW history to do that, and that didn't happen again until 1999, I believe, with Marcus Tuiasosopo did it.
I'm just saying you have to put like Easton or Browning in the shoes that six killer was in that era. He was throwing against. He was one of the best throwers we've had against cornerback, safeties, middle line, like people who just didn't know how to cover back then because it didn't happen. And then you got to think about putting six killer in Browning's or Easton's shoes against safeties and cornerbacks who do know how to guard the pass. And I mean, these kids are elite. Like you could get high school players who are probably better than some NFL players at cornerback or safety back in the day, simply because we've adapted to the passing game so much. And I think that when you compare like shoe to shoe, era to era, there's other quarterbacks better than six killer, and I think Reggie Williams, because of that, is the better third pick.
Well, I mean, there could be better players than six killer, but I mean, why are you putting Reggie Williams up here ahead of all these other great Huskies?
Brought absolute glory to UW. He led the Pac-12 in so many things in his college career playing times, and he, because of that, was awarded first team, all-team Pac-12, Pac-10 back then. Sorry, let me correct myself. First team All-Americans. Like he was getting all these garnerships and things, and because of that, he advanced to the NFL. Like his career in college was good enough to propel him into the NFL.
That's great, but I mean, we're looking at Huskies. I mean, like you said, if we were looking at guys who played great in college and then adding on their NFL stats, I probably would have picked.
Well, because we're looking at the X here, right? X becomes Y. Mm-hmm. If Y is nothing, how poor was X that you couldn't get a Y? Reggie Williams has a huge Y value here because of what he did in that X term, that college career. And so I'm just saying, like, if six killer couldn't get any value points in Y, I don't know why I'm making a math analogy. This is the summertime. I don't have classes.
Yeah, I'm getting a little confused here. We're not supposed to be in school right now.
Whatever, Nathan. Yeah, it's hard to compare across positions between Reggie Williams and a six killer. It's definitely a tough battle.
I mean, there were so many great players that we had to choose from. I mean, we had to leave Warren Moon off. I mean, we
have to go off a college career. Sadly, Warren Moon didn't step up in college. So the plan for this segment, to Nathan, as you and I have talked about, and I'm sure anyone who's watching is excited to know about, is you guys get to decide who had the better argument, who had the better pick for these next 3 weeks. And at the end of the 3 weeks, just before what should have been our very first conference game, we're going to have a very special prize. It's a Wheel of Misery. With punishments, fun gags, things we're going to have to do for you guys on camera. That sounded really terrible out of context. I'm glad no one's clipping these. Oh, wait, we clip them. Haha. But please be on the lookout for a poll coming out on Twitter or live on stream in the future. We're going to be having all of that coming up to you. And this is our new segment. I'm really excited for it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Okay. Thank you, everybody who showed up today and for being here. We appreciate you guys so much. Please feel free to drop a comment next time. Again, I'm Joseph Claypoole, and this is Nathan Mathisen. You can follow us on our different social medias with our ats that are below us on screen. Mine are different. Try to figure out which one's at 9_3/4. I can't remember. You can follow Dashports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Dashports TV. Don't forget to catch the best clips from today's episode at dashports.tv, along with clips, quips, streaming schedules, and full episodes from every other school in the Pac-12. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. This is Husky Dash signing off.